Well, why don't we go ahead and start, and we'll welcome them in when they come.
Very good. What we could do is go around just really quickly and introduce everybody to each other. So we can go around.
Great.
How's that?
Sounds great.
So I'd like to go ladies first. Becky, would you like to go first?
Sure. I'm Becky Norvell. I live in Sparta. My grandson Wyatt, we were just talking about, he lives in Northern Virginia. He's my CF grandchild, and he will be 3 on the 17th, and he's doing wonderful and started Trikafta last Saturday.
Very good.
That's great.
He's been on Kaleido and just started Trikafta.
Oh, excellent. That's
Yeah.
Great. Great. So who do we have next? Merritt?
So I'm Merritt Piper. I am the new development manager. I'm located in Knoxville. And I guess my CF connection, I used to nanny for a child that had CF when I was in college.
Wow.
Amazing. And we have Uma, is that correct?
Oh, that's my grandkids call me. I'm Ann Bertram.
Hi, Ian. We're literally just starting introductions.
Okay, well, my Zoom had to update, so, and I guess my camera's kind of messing up too, so sorry I'm a little late.
No, that's okay. You're right on time.
Yeah, it's just gonna flash.
And where do you live?
My husband and I live in Nebraska, and we have 2 children in Nashville that have CF. Levi's 9 and Carolina is 5.
That's great.
Oh, very good. So,
And they're here in Nashville, right, Ian?
Yes, they are.
So
Yep.
For those of you who know Ron Taylor on our board, it's he and Aaron's kiddos. This is Aaron's mom.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yes, yep,
Love them.
yes. Absolutely.
and we have, looks like Becky.
Is there another Becky? I already went.
Sorry, gone.
Yeah, you're right. So then we have Kim, why don't you go ahead, Dave?
Okay, well, I'm Kim Hewell of Scarborough, Norm's other half, and we have a grandson, Johnston Graham, who actually lives in Maryland, who just turned 4, has CF, and he started Trikafta, I think about 2 weeks ago. So we were truly excited about that, and waiting to see how that works out for him. So
Awesome.
And then we have, looking through the list here. So we have then Bruce, can you kick it off for the guys? I think those are all the ladies, I believe.
Yes, Bruce Van Cleve from Knoxville. My granddaughter Evelyn is 6. She has CF. She started Trikafta in February and is doing real well on it. In fact, her parents were at a public event this weekend and heard another little girl coughing, and they looked at each other and said, it's been almost 2 months since they've heard Evelyn actually cough or having problems like that. So Trikafta has been a real game changer for her. She graduated from kindergarten just a few weeks ago, and so we take care of her every day during the summer. So we're out playing and reading, doing all those fun things.
Excellent, excellent. Jeanne?
Yes, so I'm Jeanne Marchetti. My daughter has CF, though I'm y'all's age. Margaret's 37, and the average life expectancy when she was born was a lot younger than it is today. Today it's 57, you all know that. And and just because I want to share this with you, my grandmother name is Sugar, and I love having grandchildren, and I'm so glad to hear your stories and it's so wonderful to hear your involvement with your grandchildren. They know that you're there, and they know that you're caring. And I know your children really need your help more than many children who have their own children. Having someone with CF in the family takes a lot of energy. So thank you for helping your families.
Excellent. We're very pleased to have Jeannie with us tonight. So we have some great CF staffers here. Obviously, Catherine Hofstetter is here with us, and Catherine is the development director for the Nashville chapter. So, Catherine.
Yes, hi. I think I've met all of you now, at least via Zoom. So we're just grateful to be here and thankful for Norm's leadership of the special group of our Grampians. And as Jeannie said, it's such a unique and special place you have in these kiddos' lives. And so there's a lot that it's just fun to hear your stories and your involvement and the way y'all cheerlead them. So cheerlead for them.
Then we have, thanks, Catherine. So we're happy to have you here to help us out. We have Jolly Johnson as well. And she's in East Tennessee, I believe.
Hi guys. Sorry, I'm in the car right now. I've had family in town and I'm racing out to grab dinner for folks. So, but wanted to hop on and say hi.
Great. And then, excellent. Be careful. Great to see you though. So, and last but certainly not least is Scott Sherwood. Now, Scott is with the national organization. He's the senior specialist for policy and advocacy at the Cystic Foundation headquarters in Bethesda, Maryland. So,
yeah, thank you for the invitation to join the call. I love connecting with groups like this, especially our grandparents who just bring such a different energy to it, and it's just great to see all the work that you're doing. I'm calling in from Washington D.C., but my in-laws live in Chattanooga, so I was just down there a couple of weeks ago. I go down to Chattanooga, Tennessee every once in a while when I get a chance. So I was just down there for the Memorial Day weekend and for a few extra days. So love spending my time down in the Tennessee area.
Excellent. I think I got it. Did I miss anybody?
I think Sean just hopped on the call.
Yeah, Sean, our other development director here in Nashville, he's popping in while his wife cooks him some grub to meet you all wonderful people.
So, Sean, did you want to introduce yourself?
I can do a quick introduction, no problem. My name's Sean Hips. I am one of the development directors, if you haven't already heard from me or met me in some form or fashion, and joined on about 10 months ago, August of last year. So soon 1 year mark coming around the corner, and happy to jump on and hear more about what's going on with Grampions.
Excellent. So very quickly, we have two very distinguished folks who are joining us here for the Grampions call, Jeanne Marchetti and Scott Sherwood. Jeanne is, let me introduce myself. I'm Norm Scarborough. I'm I'm a member of the board of directors here for the national, for the Tennessee chapter, CF chapter. I am also the Grampions chair currently. Jeanne Marchetti is a board member like myself, and she is the advocacy chair. We're very pleased to have Jeanne here to speak to us about advocacy. And then we obviously have Scott Sherwood, who's going to be joining us as well to talk about advocacy as well. So before we do that, though, I think a nice transition might be for Catherine, I believe, is going to give us an overview on Grampions in general. Is that not correct, Catherine?
Sure. Well, it's pretty self-explanatory, but our Grampions are a community of grandparents of children and adults with CF. And it was started by the foundation to really just create connection, community, resourcing, opportunities for engagement and volunteering. Sometimes I think we've heard grandparents wanting to do something, wanting to help, and not really necessarily knowing what that looks like all the time. So staying connected to the foundation, dates, the advocacy, the events, the fundraising, the stories, I think can be a huge encouragement. And then just meeting each other, because this is still technically a rare disease, even though there's, over 30,000 folks living with CF, but it's still a rare disease. So it's a smaller community, and we want you all to find each other, and you have to do absolutely nothing besides be a grandparent of someone with CF. And so we try to do these quarterly calls with different topics. We had a tent at Great Strides just so people could come up to the Grampions tent and meet folks. So please do not hesitate to contact Norm or I anytime if you're looking for ways to get involved, looking for a way to help, needing to plug in somehow, whether it's, you're trying to help your son or daughter or in-laws find insurance help, and you want to get connected to CF's Compass program, whatever it is, we're here too. And we just want you to have each other. So again, there's probably over 200 people that are at least marked as grandparents in just our chapter alone. And so let's stick together, so thank you, Norm.
No, thank you, Catherine. So yeah, it's always nice to be afforded this opportunity for us to all get together and kind of compare notes and, just share the, all the recent successes that we're seeing. And that's great news for everybody. And also just to be supportive for the other grandparents and parents that are out there. So it is a somewhat daunting situation at times. So, but without further ado, I think we would like to speak to how we as grandparents can be, more effective advocates for our grandchildren. And so with that, we have some experts in advocacy here. And so we'll start off with Scott Sherwood. He's from the national organization, as I said earlier. And so, Scott, would you like to give us some insights?
Yeah, thanks, Norm. I'll start us off and share a little bit about the foundation's priorities, what we look to do from the foundation's policy and advocacy team, what we're looking for, how we engage, and then excited to turn over to Jeanne to really talk about ways to get involved. She's, as the advocacy chair, a tremendous leader in the work that we're doing. And she's on the ground and really works hand in hand with the volunteers that are getting involved with advocacy, helping them kind of get their footing and talk about ways that what they can do, how they can say it, what they can accomplish in Tennessee with our members of Congress and state legislators. So I can see if I can share my screen. Great. I can, let me select, I've got just a couple of slides that I'll run through quickly here.
Is it letting you share, Scott?
It is. Yeah, I just have too many.
I just made you a co-host. So
yeah, great. All right. Let me get this in like a presentation mode. Okay, there we go. Sorry, we're a few days out from our, well, about 2.5 weeks away from our Teen Advocacy Day event, which is a really cool event. If you're unfamiliar with, we bring teens from all across the country to Washington, D.C., and we schedule meetings, and they get trained the day before, and then they all go to the Hill and they become little lobbyists. So we've got, we're in the midst of like our training and developing that training and the materials, but it's a really cool event that we're always excited to put on, because you see that growth of these shy teens. They can be 13 to 18 years old, and they come to the event not knowing when to speak or what to say, and at the end they're running meetings with members of Congress. So that's an event that's coming up here at the end of the month that we're really excited for. But yeah, CF Foundation Advocacy. So our goal here is, we've made so much progress, right, in what it means to live with cystic fibrosis through the work of your volunteerism, through donations, through the fundraising. We're at a point where we have these breakthrough therapies that are changing the lives of people living with CF. A number of you have mentioned some of those, utilizing some of those therapies for your grandchildren, like Trikafta and Kalydeco. There's been Orkambi, all the therapies that are out there, even beyond those highly effective modulators. We've made such incredible progress, but that's only half the battle if people don't have affordable access to those treatments and eventually to a cure. Those treatments are really effective for about 90% of the CF population, but we're not done yet. We are going to continue to fundraise and find treatments and to ensure affordable access to future treatments for that next 10%, so that everyone has the same quality of life and everyone can experience what we've seen, the tremendous successes that we've seen so far. And from our team's perspective, from the policy and advocacy team, we really work to make sure that members of Congress and state legislatures across the country hear from the CF community and hear from us to understand what are the needs of people living with CF. So we have a whole team in place who are tracking legislation, watching bills, seeing what's coming up, seeing where we can weigh in on. And we typically send letters or comments or provide these leaders in the state or federal legislatures, provide them stats, comment, letters. But the most impactful thing that we can really share are personal experiences. We can share those anecdotes and those stats, but really being able to share a personal story from a grandparent or a parent or a patient is really impactful. So you might think, a patient has the best story, but that's only one side of the coin. That's only one part of the story. Parents have a story to tell, but grandparents and friends, everyone has a really important perspective to share. And I hope throughout this conversation, you can kind of think about, how you can weigh in and think about how you can share your story, because it's really impactful for the decision makers to hear from you as grandparents and others that are connected to this disease. We've seen a lot of success just coming from our relatively small population of 30, now close to 40,000 people living with the disease in the United States. We've seen over the last couple of years, looking back, some of the things we've advocated for were newborn screening. So up until 2010, newborn screening wasn't something that was in place in every state. But after 2010, due to our advocacy across the country and individual states and with federal legislation, cystic fibrosis is screened at birth. And we know how important that early detection has become to get treatments in the hands of people living with the disease as soon as possible, to get them on the care regimen. Before the newborn screening processes were in place, people could go 10, 15, 20 years before they're properly diagnosed. And, I've met people who are older who have been misdiagnosed with the disease, the first 10 years of their life, 15 years of their life, thinking it was a severe case of bronchitis or something. But now we have newborn screening in place, so we're catching most of these cases right off the bat. We've also seen success on protecting programs like the Affordable Care Act. A couple of years ago, there was Congress was voting on the repeal and replace of the Affordable Care Act. And one of our volunteers ran into a key senator, and she's a CF advocate, and shared her experience as a grandparent of her grandchild with CF. And Susan Collins quotes this as one of the reasons why she voted against repealing the Affordable Care Act and keeping that in place, to keep patient protections in place for people with conditions like CF and others. So that's another tremendous win that we've seen. And our team, we've always focused on also properly funding the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, and the NIH, the National Institutes of Health. And those have been instrumental over the years as well. The FDA is what has approved therapies like Trikafta, and having that properly funded has ensured that it's been made sure that it's gone through the right process to make sure that treatments like that are safe, they're effective, and they can be properly brought into market. And we continue to see that. Just about 6 weeks ago, we saw 2 announcements. One, that Trikafta is now approved for ages 2 and up. So we're able to get people on that therapy even sooner. Just before this approval it was 5 and up, and now it's 2 and up. And then Kalydeco is now approved for children 1 month and older. So just, again, being able to have that early diagnosis and then getting them on the right care regimen as soon as possible. These all come from wins that, our community has really been on the forefront of and pushing forward. So, again, our team is always looking at these ways where we can weigh in, where through the lens of how does this affect people living with CF? And so those are a couple of the wins that we've been able to accomplish over the last couple of years. But I'll talk about some of the initiatives that we're looking at right now. I'll kind of skim over these a little bit, but I think that they're really important. I want to bring attention to them, and Jeanne will come on and share her experience kind of talking about these initiatives as well. But one of our current priorities on the federal landscape is around antimicrobial resistance. So this is a growing issue, and you might have heard about this. It's also called AMR. You can also think about this like antibiotic resistance. It all comes from the same kind of idea here, is that we're running out of options when it comes to antibiotics, and I'll talk a little bit about that. I'll jump into this slide, but why this is really important for people living with CF is that mucus that develops in the lungs of someone living with CF becomes a real breeding ground for these very difficult to treat infections. You've heard probably of MRSA or Pseudomonas, and these can be really harmful. They can lead to hospitalizations. A lot of our patients, they go in and get tune-ups and do these things where they're really relying on antibiotics much more than someone like myself or others that, maybe you get prescribed an antibiotic for a week or so and then you're off of it. Some of our patients, rely on antibiotics consistently for their weekly routine or even daily routine. So it's really important that we have enough options to treat these really tough to treat antibiotics. And what we're seeing is that we don't have enough options. One, looking at over the past 10 years, there's only been 15 new antibiotics that have been brought to market. And actually 5 of those have been pulled off of the shelves due to poor performance because, the nature of antibiotics, they're usually created for a short amount of time, and they're not designed to be used for a long amount of time either. So we're not seeing a lot of companies go into the space to create new antibiotics. So we're at a shortage there. And then, if we're using antibiotics over and over, what happens is, germs are smart, bacteria is smart, and they develop resistance to these antibiotics. And that's the growing problem here where, this affects our community, but also Americans across the country, where 2.8 million Americans have acquired a resistant infection each year. And that leads to about, I think the stat is an American dies every 15 minutes from an antibiotic resistant infection. So this isn't just an issue that affects our community, but it affects patients across the country who are catching these infections where you can catch an infection without knowing it. So it's really important to have more options. And so we're working with Congress to educate them on this issue because our community can really speak to the need of fighting these infections. And we're asking Congress to pass what's just called the Pasteur Act. And so what the Pasteur Act will do is really incentivize the development of new antibiotics and start bringing in some more options and really build out that toolbox so that people living with CF and others can fight these really difficult to treat infections. So we're asking members of Congress to co-sponsor and support this bill. And our community has been at the forefront of this, I've mentioned, but last year, our community was responsible for getting over, it was about 65 members of Congress to sign on for this bill. And we're continuing to, now that session has just started in January, new Congress, we're building that momentum back up and having great conversations around this bill, and hopefully something that we can get done in this session. But it's definitely a priority for us, and it's really incredible to see what the community is able to do on this issue. Another issue is around making sure that people have affordable access to the treatments that they need. So we know that affordability is something that is really important for people with CF. People with CF, we know that Trikafta, these therapies, they come at a cost and they're expensive. People with CF rely on multiple forms of insurance and coverage to make sure that they can get the right care that they need. And just a couple of stats here are just the number of people that require third-party assistance that'll pay for those treatments, and just making sure that people are able to access the care that they need. And what we've seen in the healthcare market is really two pieces here. We've seen that health insurance plans have been able to implement programs called copay accumulator programs, which prevent people from applying those third-party coupons or third-party assistance to their out-of-pocket deductibles. And so that's been an issue. Also, health plans have been able to deem certain categories of prescriptions as non-essential. I'm just going to really just talk about these just briefly, just knowing that these are small little loopholes that are within insurance programs that can really affect the out-of-pocket costs that a patient is responsible for. So these are the type of things that our team is watching. Our team is looking out for our community, and so we're advocating for the passage of the Help Copays Act, which will close those loopholes and really prevent the shifting of cost onto patients. We know that patients, affordability is a challenge, so we want to make sure that we can prevent out-of-pocket costs, keep them as low as possible for our patients. So this is another important issue. And actually, we had March on the Hill, our event for advocacy and community members to come to Washington, D.C. in March and advocate on these two issues. And when we started advocating on the Hill, in Capitol Hill, there was only a bill in the House for this version. And if you remember your Civics 101, you need a House version, you need a Senate version. And after our community spoke to senators, a number of senators said, hey, I want to introduce this bill in the Senate. We need to get this done in the Senate. And so just a couple of weeks after March on the Hill, the Senate version was introduced based off of the conversations that our community had. So another win to get the momentum going on these issues. And say all of this, just put it in place. These are two issues, one around affordability, one around future treatments and antibiotics. We know, effective modulators like Trikafta, Kalydeco, those effective modulators are helpful, but they don't prevent infections. Those infections are still things that we see, so we still need those antibiotics for the future. And as we use antibiotics, we need to fight resistance. So, it's really important that we weigh on these issues, and your perspective and your ability to advocate on these issues is really important. So the easiest way to do that is by utilizing our act.cff.org website. And this is a screenshot from that website. And so we've got a number of campaigns here, one on the Pasture Act, one on the Help Copays Act. These are where we have all of the ways to jump in as an advocate. And you can just click on one of these, and basically it'll bring up a synopsis of the issue, a pre-written message that's already ready to go. Once you put in your name and your address, it'll send off to your member of Congress. And it's really helpful to build those numbers to get those messages into Congress, because that's how they know that these issues are important. I mentioned that there's a pre-written template message that's ready to go, but you can always customize that and add personal experiences. And then another thing that you can do as well is, communicate with, myself, or Jeannie's a great person as well, as does your loved one, does your grandchild, are they affected by any of these issues? Because as we'll share soon, it's helpful for us to be able to share those stories and say, hey, we know someone that's in Nashville that, had a serious infection. They had to miss their friend's birthday party because they were in the hospital due to an infection. Or maybe there's an opportunity for you to join an upcoming meeting with a member of Congress, or maybe help us write a letter to the editor is something that we do. But, collecting your stories and letting us know that you have these experiences, or even just these concerns, that you're concerned that in the future there might not be enough antibiotic options, or concerned with some of the issues with cost and affordability. Sharing those concerns are really helpful so that we can put you in position to share with your members of Congress. So with that, I will turn it over to Jeanne to talk about, we've got a couple of systems in place. One of them is our Congressional Captains Program, which we're really excited to have such a great group of these leaders that are in each congressional captain, each congressional district, that are meeting with their members of Congress. But I will turn it over to Jeannie to share a little bit about what's going on in Tennessee.
Thanks, Scott. I guess Catherine, if you would please show this slide for cystic fibrosis community in Tennessee first. I think it's important for all of us to realize that we're not alone. There are 800 people living with CF right now in Tennessee. And, you know, that's a statistic that may or may not mean much to you, but it does mean something to your congressman. And I don't know if I can maneuver this. I think you're going to be the one. And I would shrink it down to like, yeah. And you can see that there are 18,000 CF advocates. 58% of children with CF rely on Medicaid, and 27% of adults with CF rely on Medicaid. This is important on many different levels. Tennessee did not vote to expand Medicaid, so we're missing out on funds that could be supporting people and assisting people who we love, who right now have CF. So that's always in the back of my mind, is, you know, just to make mention of that if I am advocating for people with cystic fibrosis. And I think if we'll show the slide on the May talking points, please, Catherine, next. Just briefly, several people who are district advocates in Tennessee have met with their congressmen and their senators. It is something that allows that person, and we have not met with the senators and we have not met with the congressmen. We've met with their district deputy and their staff members, but we've started to have a relationship with these people. That's something that I really had to swallow my pride on this, because I think politically, particularly in this country right now, there's a divide, and you're either here or here. And when we're talking about the lives of our loved ones, we're all here. We're right smack in the middle where the heart is. And so when we're talking to these people, I kind of put aside, you know, the views that I know these senators or congressmen have on gun safety, on expanding Medicaid, on. And I really talk to them as people. And just like Scott said, I tell them my story. It's so important for them to know that Margaret's life expectancy is now 57, but when I was in nursing school, it was 12. It's so important for them to know that Margaret has a 5-year-old, and I want her to be a grandmother. I want her to see Betty as a mom, if she chooses to be a mom. And so that's as important as helping this staff person understand a little bit more about the Pasteur Act and about the Help Copays Act. It's important for you to familiarize yourself with these things. They're not simple statements that you will understand if you read one sentence. You're going to have to go over it a couple of times, but it's so worth it to understand it. I will say this: when you're talking to the staff person, you're really talking about your grandchild. You're really talking about the struggles that you've seen your child go through. All these, the two pieces of legislation that we're supporting right now, the Help Copays and the Pasteur Act, have a House bill and a Senate bill, and you can see the numbers on that page. I can help you with this. This was a little, it takes just, it takes a little bit of reading, but you'll get it. And you're going to be you're going to be able to talk about this, you know, with more knowledge perhaps than the district deputy that you're speaking with. It just so happened that the Senator Haggerty's staff member who I was speaking to was the healthcare staff member. And so he was super aware of both the PASTOR Act and the Help Copays Act. And, you know, his comment was, I don't see what there is not to vote for in this, but, you know, I'm not the senator. And we have a relationship now. You know, he can't vote on behalf of the senator or the congressman who he works for, but he can have that conversation with them. So I think that's something that, you know, it's going to pay off, maybe not today, but maybe by the end of the year. Maybe if there's a vote at the end of the year and we've continued to reach out to this, you know, staff member, maybe send them a Valentine's card, send them a, you know, whatever. I mean, I've left pictures of Margaret and Betty. I'm shameless when I go. And I think that's fair. I think it's, you know, it's very fair to me, for me to leave my precious granddaughter's picture with her mom and dad. And I think if we go to the next slide, which is the Tennessee Congressionals, the one that I sent you today. Let's see, that is not the one it's the last one. Nope. It is the one that I sent you today. And so if you don't see it, that's okay. This one, if you were seeing it, would you show something boring? I'll just sort of share it with you. We have 9 congressional districts in Tennessee. Our chapter is responsible for 8 of those districts. One of them is in Memphis, and we have a Memphis chapter. For district, or I don't know what district y'all are in, but I don't think anyone's in District 1, where Elizabethtown is. District 2, Bruce, I think you're in Knoxville, right? And so actually, Bruce, we do not have a district captain for District 2. And so I might reach out to you after this call and give you a little bit of information about it. District 3 in Chattanooga, is anyone from Chattanooga? I can't remember. Alex Birnbaum is there, and we have Stephanie Nipper in District 4. I'm District 5. Kat Carroll's District 6. And Becky, I think you're in Sparta.
Yes.
I think that's District 6.
Yes.
And so I know that Kat Carroll would love to have your help, and I'd love to talk to you about that later.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
District 7 is Franklin, Tennessee. District 7 is just the wonkiest looking district. It's only less wonky than District 5. Our district it looks like a sea monster now. And that allowed the super majority or this side of the group to have a better chance of winning election. So, but okay, so the district captains are people who I'm going to reach out to every time Scott messages me from DC, and he tells me that we have a piece of legislation that's important to our children and grandchildren, or he tells me that the debt ceiling budget is being discussed, and there is a possibility that there will be something that requires people who receive aid from the government to work more. And that was something that passed, unfortunately, but we advocated against that because there's so many people who receive aid with CF who are not able to work. We wanted to protect those people. But if I reach out to people in my district, or if you happen to be the district captain, what you would do is you would get an email from Scott. I would get an email from Scott, perhaps. I would send it to my team. They would then reach out to their congressmen and their senators. And there's a template, just like Scott said, there's a pre-written letter that has the wording that includes most of the information that you want. You can always personalize it, and you can tell them why this means so much to you. And you hit a send button and it's done. So that's kind of the very, the most important thing that we do. The other things that we do is, we write, like Andy Ogles has an office in Columbia. So I drive to Columbia and, pass all these pretty farms and go have a meeting with his staff member and come back. I'll send cards to them at different points of the year and just remind them, what's important to my daughter living with CF and what's important to your grandchildren living with CF. But advocacy it's important. And I will tell you something, people know that you have a grandchild living with CF. You've made that clear because you've done walks or you've worn t-shirts, or I know that you all just being here tonight tells me that you're committed to supporting your grandchild with CF. So this is one more way that you can support that grandchild.
I'll jump in real fast, just to pile on. A couple of things that you've mentioned is, our CF advocacy is, there's a lot going on in Capitol Hill, and it can be really partisan. But when it comes to CF advocacy, we're there to talk about people living with CF, people with CF, not politics. So we're really focused on our issues, and the two issues that we're talking about right now, the Help Co-Pays Act, Pasture Act, both very bipartisan. So the Pasture Act is actually 50% Democrats and 50% Republicans all throughout. When I said last year when we had 65 co-sponsors, or 66, it was 33-33. So split across both parties. And then, the work that Jeanne's doing with the congressional captains. So that's identifying one person in each of the congressional districts to build a relationship with that member of Congress, so that, when things come up, they already know her, they already know the stories, they already know the relationship's already there to have a real conversation. And, I think connecting with the congressional captain, or sharing your story with the congressional captain, or, maybe having your grandchild write a letter or passing that along, those captains can help kind of facilitate that, or you can join a future meeting with the captains, or other creative ways to just, share that there's people in this district, in this community, that are affected by these issues. I think is something that is helpful, that anyone on this call and anyone in the community can really lend and share their how they're affected.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. I think, for everybody, hopefully everybody here feels the same way. If not, please pipe up. But I think it's exceedingly helpful to know, that there are ways to make our voices heard, and hopefully help not only our grandchildren, but also our everybody else's grandchildren as well for this.
Yeah.
No matter how old they are, by the way. So I think it's great. So
Yeah, thank you both so much.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions? I feel like you both made it really, present it in a way. I know people can be intimidated by advocacy and kind of the long road it can be. So making it digestible and step by step. I know for me, those talking points are so key. This is what I do. I can do this. So thank you for empowering all of us.
So there's a certain amount of demystification that is very helpful as well. Just kind of taking the well, we don't know what to do sort of thing. And so, but I think that Jeanne, you and Scott really helped with that quite a bit, and even more importantly, giving the folks here a name of someone that they can reach out to if they have a question. concern. So I hope you don't mind with that, but I think that's just as equally advantageous to have as well. So
Yeah, and I'm going to drop in the chat a link for everyone to sign up for advocacy alerts if you're not already. It's the easiest way to stay up to date. We don't send a ton of communication. We really like to be thoughtful, and when we reach out and send you a message, hey, here's a chance for you to send a quick message to your member of Congress or your state legislatures. So I will drop the link in, and then when you have time, you can click that and just put in your name, email address. If you want to receive an email or a text alert, you can choose whichever one, both, however is best for you. But it's the easiest way to stay up to date with upcoming initiatives.
Yeah.
And I guess I should get your permission to reach out to you to ask if you all would like to be part of a team in your districts. And I'll ask Catherine maybe and Norm to ask your permission. And Bruce, I don't want to put you on the spot, but we don't have anyone in Knoxville. And I'm looking at your extreme height sign behind you. That was so much harder to do than advocacy. So you've done the hard part. This will be the easy part. If you're interested, even if you just want to be on the team. So
I'd be happy to help. And also I know in this area, like Chuck Fleischman's district comes all the way up and around Knoxville. And so we have a lot of contacts in those districts, those counties too, as well. So,
great.
You know, so, and I know some folks affiliated with Chuck, so.
That's wonderful. Let's see. So that's District 2, yeah. Thank you. And thank all of y'all for listening and just for advocating for your children, your grandchildren, just by being here. This is something that, I mean, I'll bet you if you reach out to your child tonight and tell them the call that you've been on, they're going to be so appreciative of it, because it's a longer 24 hours with a child with CF than it is without a child with CF. I can tell you that. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie, again. It's been very, very helpful. So, and Scott, we really appreciate you as well. So, and Catherine and the rest of the Tennessee chapter, you know, as always, I appreciate all of the assistance and guidance that you guys are able to provide to us. So, but in the meantime, though, does anybody else, you know, I really very, you know, I'm glad that everybody else joined us as well. But does anybody have any questions or comments or, you know, anything you'd like to talk about before we break? You know,
I do,
break.
Norm.
Yes.
For those of you that are associated with Knox County or this area, I do help out with the board in this area and help with I'm the Grampions chair for this area. So if you're in the Knoxville area or have questions on the Knoxville area, I'm sure Catherine, Jolly, Sean can get you in contact with me if you need anything in the Knoxville, East Tennessee area.
Thanks.
That's great.
And Bruce, if you have any assistance, let us know. So. Anybody else have any thoughts or concerns? Well, here again, if you all have any questions that I can be of assistance with, or even if I don't know, I'll find someone that does, or just make something up for you. So there you go. Just let me know. But no, I'm happy to help. So.
Yes, and if there's anyone in your family or community you want to share this information with, we have recorded this call, and I'll send out the link as soon as we have that to this Grampians email group. So thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Norm.
Thanks, Catherine, as always.
Awesome. And we'll connect about kind of the next two and get those on the books for when works for you and get those on people's calendar. So
excellent. So if
thank you.
any thoughts about the subjects or topics, I'm more than open.
You too. Yeah. I mean, I think the last two topics were obviously so informative. So yeah, be thinking about it.
All right. Well, very good. All right.
Okay.
Anyway, thanks a lot. Have a great evening.
You too, Norm. Only regret we couldn't get that video downloaded.
It's okay.
We're going to show it.
We'll figure it out. It's not a big deal.
Okay. Bye-bye.